Hey all, this is 012 and
Your state alchemist of jade-colored jackassery,
and as my
Jerk.
and as my finger disappeared in that light there, again apologies about that, but again we are coming at you with another review, and yes, that is Jarek there. Let's see. Yes, I'll go right into it since if you all saw my short review. Don't know yet because I'll just make this joke here. Nobody viewed it yet yesterday after I put it up in the afternoon, but as you see, Fullmetal Alchemist Season 1. This episode again, Episode 7, Night of the Chimera's Cry. So, to start us off, you guys know my review. I'm going to try to be a bit more concise with my things about what I liked about it. But I will basically say, hear me talk about it. My favorite thing about it, I have to say, was everything with Alexander and Nina and the Elrics dealing with that whole thing, the whole desperation of Tucker wanting to know if he could do this, not really caring that it was his daughter, just seeing if he could. Again, Jarek, I mentioned this yesterday, so I'll reiterate this, that when he did what he did, I know we had the thing where it was like he wasn't doing exactly like what the Elrics were doing, where they were trying to save their mom out of desperation. He was doing it for science, but I also got the thought yesterday while doing this review, for the short review, I said how he probably looked at it as my daughter's helping me with the science, and as long as she's still here in some way, shape, or form, it isn't all that bad. And I'm like, that's very a fucked up way
Yeah.
to think about it. But I guarantee you that's what he thought.
Well,
If she's still there in some way, shape, or form, so I did nothing bad.
I guarantee you that would be his defense on the witness stand. It's like, well, she's still here. It's just now there's a little bit more of her and some Einstein added in for good measure.
Yeah, we're basically she's my dog, and she's my she's my she dog. Ugh.
Now she is neither Nina nor Einstein. Now she is Nina Stein.
Yeah, buzzing and flies to her. Oh, where'd she go? But yeah, there was that, and like I said, it was just the whole investigation, Tucker's desperation, Edward losing it, Alphonse trying to pull him back to understand. Nina, regardless of what her father did to her, still loving her dad in her own way because that is still her father, being the dedicated daughter. Seeing how, on a side note, because it wasn't huge, but with Boss Ron coming into the picture, you see where the government's corruption is fitting into this thing, how Tucker did this because of the desperation of not being funded by Boss Grand, because Boss Grand, as you remember, as I said in the short review, did not want to be upstaged by Mustang or the Fuhrer. So all those neat little parts coming into it, and then I have to say, again, Edward thinking he has to bear some responsibility while seeing the dead woman on that case that he didn't mean to have the PTSD with, knowing that something was wrong with Tucker, but he didn't know what it was. The investigation into that, how nothing fit into place, what happened with his wife, what he heard from the library, what he heard from Tucker and Nina himself, what he heard from, Maze Hughes, where I said, yeah, the wife disappeared before before he showed up in the Central, which was also not technically true. It's just that all that stuff was culminating, and then for final, I gotta say again, that emotional send-off in the credits and showing Nina and the Elrics playing together and all that, and there I go again, getting emotional over it a little bit, but
I just love how he accidentally exposed Show Tucker exposed himself by telling Elric, oh, she left us before we came to Central and I had my big success. And then he's talking to Maze Hughes, and Maze Hughes is like, oh yeah, she disappeared shortly after they came to Central, and he's like, wait, was that not what happened?
Yeah.
Just such a brilliant touch, and I even love how when you know that scene like from this episode where he's like, that's what I hate about you damn perceptive kids.
Yeah. Well, again, that was more, I know in Brotherhood they said it a little differently, but that was also from the manga itself, because in the manga, they say it a little different in English, but in the manga, you have Tucker look at Edward and Alphonse, and he's like, I hate, because he says in the show, I hate prodigies like you, so damn perspective, but in the manga he just goes, I hate perceptive brats like you, and it's like again, because Tucker knew he would put it together, and I have a feeling Tucker knew that what he was doing was dangerous. But again, within his desperation, he compartmentalized it. He compartmentalized it terribly, but that's exactly how he did it. And again, with the send up at the end, like I said, and all that, just heart wrenching, touching, the little graphic things, and
Oh, they knew what they were doing with that. Like,
oh,
the
absolutely.
little snippets of Nina and Einstein at the end of the show, which
Alexander.
Alexander, which by the way, anybody remember when animes used to do that when they would have that one
I was going to bring that up with what you said, but go ahead. You beat me to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, because that was something I missed from old anime was how if you had that one really hard-hitting episode, they would have like a nice little montage reminding you of well, basically what we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, and the reason they did that, before I give you the floor, Jarek, the reason they did that, as I believe, is because the whole previous two episodes, when they're with the Tuckers, when they're with Nina, is that there's that sense of family again. There was that sense that they could have something again that they lost, that they couldn't see. And see, that's why I think, I also said it in my short review yesterday too, to reiterate it again for the fans here that watch us, is that, I bet Edward wanted to be wrong about Tucker, but it was his instinct and knowing what he had done and what there was that got him to want to investigate this in the first place. And he's like, please, God, let me be wrong. Let me be wrong. Or, in his case, sorry, that's Alphonse. Please, science, let me be wrong. Let me be wrong. Or forces in nature. But,
Well, and I think
it's like he wanted to be wrong.
And I think it hit him particularly hard because it was the mother that went missing, and in his mind he's probably thinking, did he try to do what we did with Nina's mother? And you find out, no, it was worse in a sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing too, is that, again, and that's what bothered Edward and why Edward was wailing on Tucker the way he was and almost gonna kill him, was because it's his also notion that I'm not going to become you. And this is why I'm saying, I know we had the disagreement of the previous episode leading up to it beforehand, but I said this is why I think, actually, no, we talked about when we watched the episode. When you said that they're not exactly like Tucker, I'm like, well, no, I get that. But the thing is, that's why I still think Tucker made some good points, because they still did something that Alphonse didn't stop his brother from doing, and because Edward was so desperate to be with his brother again. They didn't do it for science, but they did it out of love. But even doing something like that out of love that shouldn't be done, bringing back the dead, no, because you see that from other movies or shows, and it never ends well.
And I think what really pissed him off was the fact that he did it to Nina's mother. And Nina, young and innocent as she is, once he did that to her, I have to imagine she realized that's what happened to Mommy. Daddy did the same thing to Mommy he did to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what pissed him off, was because he knows, however short Nina Alexander's life is going to be now, she's going to have that same sadness knowing this thing, alchemy, took away my mommy.
Yeah.
The same pain they're going through. So it probably really cheesed him off just for that alone.
Well, okay. And then with that and what we've already talked about here, what you've added to, what is your favorite moment?
Well, let us count the sins of Mr. Show Tucker in the episode When the Chimeras Cry, or as I like to call it, Good Daddy, Bad Daddy, because we get some nice moments with Good Daddy, Maze Hughes. And then we get Show Tucker, you know what you did, and we're going to list it off, asshole. Like, for one, I love how in the Japanese subversion, everything is written in English. Like, when you look at a book, or when you see the signs, all of it is in English, even if the dialogue is in Japanese. Clearly indicating that, yes, this world and its people, or at least the parts of it we're focusing on now, is inspired by Eastern and Western Europe. So even if they're speaking Japanese for the audience, everything's going to be written down in English. Nice continuity. Then there's the, Edward's quick thinking and attention to very small details when people speak. This is something that's kind of correlated to, like, geniuses and prodigies, exactly like Show Tucker mentioned. Which, spoiler warning, is kind of the reason why Show Tucker hates perceptive people so much. This is one of just those little things you don't have to mention. You know, people who pick up on this shit just casually, you can tell the wheels in their heads are always on. They're always spinning, and they're just gonna catch on to things quicker. And Show probably realizes this. This is why he's putting up with the Elrics, but he does not like having these child prodigies in his house. Then you got, Edward's PTSD in relation to seeing what happens to mothers and children because of alchemy. Yeah, let's just say this is going to become a huge thing going forward, and probably going to be mentioning more of this kind of stuff down the road in other reviews for this show, so get used to that. Going to be a lot of PTSD because of this.
Mm.
Then you get the difference between Brotherhood show and OG show, and this is actually what I love about this version. You actually get to kind of formulate a relationship and see it through the eyes of the Edwards and Nina before the reveal. And it also kind of, I noticed like both versions leave it open-ended as to, was Show always this much of a desperate dirtbag, or was there actually something good about him before? Because I'd like to think, just personally from my own personal experience, that that little brief bit of success with his alchemy was, and having that taste of like fame and money and whatnot, and then realizing if I can't keep producing these results, I'm going to lose it all. Maybe that might have done it. It kind of reminds me, sort of, like that Doctor Who episode where the Eccleston doctor takes Rose Tyler back in time, and it's back to when her mom and dad get married, and
Yeah.
she saves his life and prevents him from dying, and then like those Reapers show up and start deleting people to fix the anomaly in time,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way to undo it is for her to accept the idea that this is his fixed point in time. He has to die here. But then in a later episode, they see an alternate universe where he actually did become something of a success
Mm-hmm.
by cooperating with some very bad people who may have been making Cybermen in their spare time. But it's a very interesting kind of thing. Like, was it chance and circumstance? Was it success and the thought of losing it? Or was he just always gonna show Tucker?
Well, I like to think that in many ways the science corrupted him. So I agree with your point that it was probably always there. But I have a feeling he did have love for his wife, love for his daughter, but what outweighed that was
Yeah.
essentially the science. But I also said in the show review yesterday, I think it was also the greed and the money that played a factor into it, because with him, science has power. Science is for what I could do. Because again, I brought up in the short review, what did he say to Edward and Alphonse after he did the deed? Well, I'll have no problem getting the appropriations money now. So that was his first thought.
Well,
So I mean, yeah, money and power, I believe, factored into it as well as the science.
and it kind of also reminds me of, one of my favorite Ghostbusters, Peter Venkman, because he's a con artist and a bit of a jerkbag. But he does have friends who can actually help him out with his wild ambitions, and they do eventually pay off. Sometimes with more than a little help from the genius, the dreamer, and the level-headed one. But that's kind of the thing. Like with Show Tucker, you get the feeling, this one shot at success and actually making it was really what tipped the scales. Like maybe if he had stayed small time and never really hit it big, who knows?
Yeah.
But anyways, then there's the different. This was one of the interesting details I loved, was the difference between the failed chimeras we see, which all look, like spindly, wrong. They got like bones jutting out of them. They kind of look like Resident Evil rejects. You know what I'm saying? And yet the fusion of Nina and Alexander is actually pretty much a perfect fusion. I mean, it's got like the perfect combination of both Nina and Alexander. And I thought to myself, this is probably because both of the subjects, both A, were extremely close to one another, and B, both of them had fondness in their hearts for Show Tucker. I mean, the other creatures were probably just whatever random animals he could get his hands on, and hell, he may have even abused them. But once he had like creatures that were actually, willing to do what Daddy asks of them out of sheer love and respect, and creatures that also had a strong bond with one another, it seems like the alchemy went more smoothly.
Well, again, to go with you along that, it's like how you mentioned point in Doctor Who. I will mention this point to Batman the animated series in the or no, Batman Beyond, where Ra's al Ghul comes back and he sees Talia.
Oh
Where remember
yeah.
we talked about we don't see what happens to her, but we talked about how given that she loved her father, like how you said, Nina's the perfect fusion, and remember he asked Nina to help her, or Nina was going to because she loved her father, and in some way Alexander probably did too, and that was probably the same with Talia, where Talia gave up her body for her dad because she loved him and that's
Or
how much she
or
cared.
hell, the Batman the animated series episode where Catwoman gets kidnapped and turned into a literal Catwoman. And that one tiger guy wants her to stay with him, and it's like, no, this isn't my place. And it's kind of interesting because even Dragon Ball, which by the way, rest in heaven, is our sweet little angel, Mr. Toriyama.
Yeah, Kira Toriyama, yeah, rest in peace.
How even his show brings up the idea, like, if you want a perfect fusion, it has to be like, with two compatible subjects, similar mindsets, power levels, yada yada.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat to see how this show time and again demonstrates the dangers of trying to perform high level, human alteration without compatible subjects, or people who are willing to go the distance on it.
Well,
Because,
it's the more perverse way of giving an our reality of
yeah.
not every liver, kidney, heart,
Yeah.
even part of a brain is compatible with the subject. Because you could have someone who's a match, but then the mind, the body, and the will have to be willing to accept those things. Because sometimes it doesn't, and that's why I think some horror movies have even spawned from this idea. Because what if you see through the other person's thing, or what if it tells you, and blah 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 blah.
Well, and it really demonstrates why, like, the human transmutations on Edward and Elle went so smoothly, because their will to fix this mistake is so strong that even the pain or whatever psychological effects come of it, this motivation, this drive will push them forward against all odds. Whereas Show is just a weak man trying to impose his will to be successful, but at least he was. I hesitate to use this word, lucky enough to have two subjects who actually loved him enough for it to work as well as it did.
Well, yeah, well, as messed up as that is, that's
Yeah.
probably more than likely how it happened.
And last but not least, mentioning Scar's new abilities. Yeah. Once again, we see Mr. Scar doing Scar things, but what I love about this is this show also shows him progressing in a much more natural rate, just like the Elrics. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was pulling off some badass shit in Brotherhood with like the just localizing the destruction to that man's face, or being able to aim the destruction alchemy to affect the walls and the areas of it he wanted.
Yeah.
But seeing him actually, start to be able to like sense twisted alchemy to almost hone in on it, and it's just so neat to see that we're seeing Scar at his beginning, and also kind of seeing what's gonna inevitably push him towards being the unstoppable Terminator of alchemy in this show.
Well, to add to that, I didn't go into huge deep in the review. I mentioned how, Scar looked at what he did to Nina, killing her at the end, as a mercy killing, and he keeps talking to his brother like he's there, like, brother, I now understand why you gave me this accursed arm. Maybe I am to punish the souls who did what they did to us. And, he keeps talking to him like he's there, like, and I hate to say this like this. Well, maybe no, I don't hate to say this. Like, in this one too, and this is just me because I know we're still at the beginning here. Scar seems to have way more of a godly calling in the original, where in this one's like, I'm just out for vengeance, doing God's work in the name of God. But this, it's like he literally believes his brother and or God are talking to him, giving him signs.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's the original. I understand it. It's going to be a little different, but nothing wrong. And again, J. Michael Tatum, and I think it could be wrong, could still be the same voice actor. Ryotaro Okiayu. I'll definitely take a look at that when we get back to Brotherhood. But again, I like how there's a bit more of, yes, it's still a terrible justification, but to him there's a bit more of, I'm doing a service in the name of God here that I truly believe, instead of like, in the name of God, because of my own vengeance, you die now. Bah. And you know, it's like, again, it's more Damian Clark and Ryotaro Okayai, or sorry, Okayu. There was more of a merciful way of it. It wasn't as brash, and I liked that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because
Well, it kind of
Brotherhood doesn't give us that.
it kind of reminds me almost of like that asshole you fight in Final Fantasy 15, the one who was like the guy before you, and all those years of like doing what he had to do, and then it just kind of corrupted him slowly until he went off the reservation.
Yeah.
Or perhaps another way of saying it is, it kind of reminds me of like the darker interpretations of Solomon Kane, because he's basically just a puritanical vigilante smiting heathens in the name of the Lord, with nothing but his rapier, his pistol, and his wits. And it's honestly kind of badass if you find good Solomon Kane stories. So
Yeah. Well, and again, I understand that, and I think that was a great point to point out there. And again, I do like, again, the growth, and like how it's a terrible way to still justify killing Nina. And again, I said with Nina, I don't think she wanted to die. I think she was just scared, but he just saw that and was just like, okay, this and that. And plus, don't get me wrong, finding that in the house in Brotherhood and her being sad about her dad died, that's heart-wrenching, because she loved her dad and she didn't want him to be killed. But in this one where she ran off because Edward did what he did with his alchemy, she ran off being scared, not knowing what was going on, and then him doing that, seeing her almost like Christ-like splattered against the wall like that, holy crap, But again, and then the music swelling, just like, oh, all that stuff. But I mean, again, a better bit. I mean, you can come at us both, but we both believe. I mean, obviously he already said it, but I do believe it is a better build. Not, again, if you're not the same actor in Japanese, who I'm blanking on right now, sorry about that. Respect, J. Michael Tatum, respect, but I like this build better. It's already been better to me, because Scar's discovering things right at the same time along with the Elrics. It's really a great correlation.
It kind of also really builds up the idea that these two are going to be not only rivals, but in a sense, people who are kind of scarred by a similar tragedy, but going down different roads. It's almost like the Cain and Abel effect.
Well, just let me do it like this before we continue. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and
Scar and I.
Yeah, let us see if we get demonetized for that now.
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me almost of like the Cain and Abel thing, where it's like one inciting incident, but it affects two different souls in two different ways and two different paths for these people.
Absolutely. And to that point, we will get to our favorite characters now with that, because great way to let up. Oh, that's Phantoms. There we go. Right thing. Again, I just to reiterate to what I said yesterday really quickly, I gave it to Edward, Vic Mignogna, Rumipaku, Alphonse, Aaron Dismuke, Rie Kugamiya, Tucker, Chuck Huber, Tanaka Nagai, Nina, Brina Palencia, Satomi Karagi, because all four of those characters, to me, they brought it emotionally, physically, in a sense. And, the performances spoke that. The Japanese was good, which is why I mentioned those names. The Japanese was very good. Romi Paku, again, really bringing out the emotion very well. I will give Romi Paku a lot of credit. She, as Edward, does that so well. She really does. But, again, maybe this is because I'm a fanboy for the dub, but there was something that the dub brought that was special, and I think I especially gave it to, again, I know she wasn't as prominent as she was in the last episode, but the emotion that Brina Palencia put in as Nina, thinking about her mother, wanting to help her dad, seeing that her dad isn't doing too well, and just the desperation of wanting to help him at any cost, and then Shao Tucker, seeing his desperation, hearing it when he's talking with Boscaron, and then when he finally does it, and then when the truth is finally revealed, that 180, just mad scientist, I'm Dr. Frankenstein, coming out of nowhere. Well done, Chuck Huber. Android 17, for those of you who don't know as well, and many other great voice acting characters he's played. But Chuck Huber, respect. You know, great stuff. And Brina Palencia, if this was one of your first roles that you did too, given that you're a veteran in the game now yourself, great work too. Because if you were really a child when you did this, or even if you were just maybe like a young adult to teenager, good stuff, because you played a little girl so well. Unless you really were a little girl, because I think they were still using kids at this time. But, Jarek, you're up.
Oh, dude, this is... I mean, again, I almost torn as to who should be number one between three different people, but ultimately...
That's why I combined the four of them, dude, because I couldn't do it out of the main ensemble. I couldn't.
At the end of the day, I'm just going to have to give it to the alchemist of voice acting himself, who transmuted one of the best performances I've seen from him thus far. The anti-bitch lasagna himself, Vic Mignogna.
I was going to say it had to be Vic. It had to be.
Oh, dude, the emotional roller coaster he goes on this is perfect. And goddamn, man, he nailed it. From the heart to heart he has with Sho Tucker about you've done this sort of alchemy before, haven't you?
Yeah.
To right up to the reveal when he's just beating the meat on that fucking asshole Tucker. Sho Tucker is, I hate to say this second because goddamn, sociopath 150 plus.
Well, again, you don't need to hate to say it for performances, dude. You can give credit. Well, like I say, you give credit to credit where it's due to the villains, because you hate to say it because of what the character does, but the performance that Chuck Huber and
the reason I hate to say it is because that forces me to have to bump Nina down to 3. Because again. Great performance, and if she was a kid when she did this, dear God, we know why she's a veteran. Like, absolute God tier, man. I mean, really, I almost did the same thing he did and went with just a 4-way tie. And of course, for number 4, I'm just gonna have to give it up to the sweetest little cupcake ever, the master of the woo face, Alphonse. Because let's face it, but Dark Horse runner-up is definitely gonna be Scar, because I expect we're going to see some very excellent freakouts in the future. And again, like I said, I know we're not seeing Damian Clark at his character's best, but when Damian Clark goes into the whole Scar facade, there's something about the performance that I love J. Michael Tatum, but again, J. Michael Tatum, I love the roles you've done, respect. I love what you do, you know, a lot of the things that he's shown me that you've been a part of, great stuff, and obviously Sebastian, who doesn't love that from Black Butler. So again, respect to you, my friend. But, and I don't mean to say this too insulting, J. Michael Tatum, but the way his performance is, Scar is a bit more brutish, because there's a bit more of a vengeful, what the military did to his people, what happened, how in many ways he says he's doing this for faith, but he lost his faith. But at the same time, he has his faith, it seems, in this one, but he's not as brutish about it. Just that you can think you're doing right, but still be misguided without vengeful thoughts. You know, I almost hate to make this joke, but Brotherhood Scar, I could easily see him having an excellent death battle against Paladin Alexander Anderson.
Yeah.
Judas Iscariot versus the Judas of the Ishvalans.
You know what I hate to say, though? Scar could put up a big fight, but if Anderson destroyed that destruction arm of his, little shit out of luck now, because I don't think your martial arts is going to stand up to those bayonets, because that's the thing. Anderson knows the fisticuffs and a bit of martial arts himself, so...
Plus, God forbid he pulls out that nail of the cross. Don't do it. Don't use that scrap of miracle.
Well, given how you're getting that, let's get started, because you and I will have much to say about the voice acting and those, which... To this day, I think Hellsing is one of the... Respect to Talos and Jaffe really quick. Hellsing is one of the most well-acted animes I think I've owned, because the performances, the English voice cast... Again, when the Japanese say they love it in English more than their own language, that's how you know you got great performances.
How good was the Hellsing Ultimate English dub? It was, in my eyes, it was better than the Black Butler English dub.
Well, Well, and again, too,
Yeah.
but Black Butler is good, but to know that Taliesin Jaffe went out of his way to get actual British voice actors or acclaimed stage actors to do the characters, you know, that's something else because again, Stephen Brand is actually a very good stage performer. Like we said, he's in the new Saw movie too, so he's also been in a lot of movies. But to know that he did Alexander Anderson, hey, you know what a great performance that is too. But final thoughts within this before we go off on a tangent about Helsing. Just again, overall heart wrenching episode, great stuff. And you know what? I will say credit to you, Jarek. I noticed, like me, you were getting a little emotional there, but you held it in. And yeah, I definitely will give you a heads up before we do these in the future. So,
Yep.
I mean, even though I know it's a great added effect, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to have to be like Sheriff Truman in Twin Peaks. It's going to happen every damn time. But, no, you know, great work there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just overall, that's all I can say is heart-wrenching episode and also great episode that will start to introduce the dirtying of politics, plus also part of the door that opens it up again for the Elrics. Because if you thought what they saw with Majahal was bad and what they experienced with Tucker, the doorway to what they can do, and also within the next one, their frailties and their age, and them still being children, will be called into question. Jarek, anything more to add?
Well, you know, let's just say they missed out on getting potential future waifu number 4 because of Show Tucker, but I have a feeling we're going to see them make up for that loss down the road. I mean, they got like what now? Potentially 3 girlfriends already and almost had 4?
You know, considering I've been going back watching a lot of our old reviews, Jarek, you've never let that one go. I've noticed in every review you're saying that of Fullmetal Alchemist.
Well, I mean, come on. You saw how that tomboy reacted to Edward.
Yeah, well, you also mentioned little Nina or Kira, what her name was on the train, so there you go, I guess. But
hey, they will never reach Toma from Railgun, so...
Yeah, true. And, well, hey, I can't wait till we get to that one. But other than that, leave a comment down below, guys. Let us know how this episode was and what you're doing, what you liked about this. And just let's get the discussion going, as many of us say. Till then, au revoir, Boku.
And Jerk the Jackass.
We will see you guys later, alright?
Deuces.